Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the Fastest Podcast, the only place where we talk about everything from the greatest overtakes to the fastest pit stops. Today I have with me Jasmine and Dan. How have you guys been?
Good. Yeah.
Still,
Still missing the racing.
yeah. How slowly are you dying?
It's not slow.
Yeah.
It's quick.
It's rapid. Yeah. Uh, Imaginable. Only one more week though, so that's something to look forward to. Um, Today, we will be talking about the 2026 regulations, um, how it can be different from other regulation changes we've seen. Of course, we saw Mercedes being the dominant force in the first era of the turbo hybrid engines, and then we saw Red Bull take it away in the ground downforce ground effect era. Um, we'll have to see if McLaren can keep this up and take that into the new era. Um, what do you guys think of McLaren this year and their chances for next year?
I mean, it's going pretty well for them. it's going pretty well. I think it's a particularly interesting sort of show of dominance because you've got both drivers up there, which I mean I think has been missing sort of from the last few seasons. So yeah, I mean it's enjoyable. It's tense. It's a nice battle. It's great to see how they've kind of turned it around as well over the last few years. I think everyone likes a story like that in F1. So yeah, I think it's promising. But next year I still think it's too soon. Like anything could happen next year. So
Yeah.
I would say, Mercedes are predicted to have the best engine next year. So, McLaren will have that on their side. You've got to look at the bits that they can take forward into next year. For example, the suspensions. I think they can carry them forward towards next year. And, their tyre management is levels above everyone else on the grid. So if they can continue that, I mean, you would still expect McLaren to be dominant. Obviously, Mercedes are only predicted to have the best engine. So we really don't know. Testing will kind of show us, some sort of playing field, and then we're not really going to know until we get to Melbourne next year.
Yeah.
But I would say McLaren will still, they might not be as dominant, but they'll still be up at the top.
Yeah, of course, we saw it in the last few years. McLaren went from the very bottom of the barrel, slowly building their car, making it to first the podium places. They could fight with the top three. And then they eventually became the team that we know today as the dominant force of F1. So dominant even that they can become the first team to reach 1,000 points in a season. It's going to be difficult though. They need to maximize points in the next 10 races, but they can be the first team to do that. They have, of course, a very powerful lineup with both Norris and Piastri. I think at this point it's pretty safe to say that one of them will become world champion this year. And go into next year as reigning champion with maybe a nice one on their car. What do you guys think of what McLaren is doing this year compared to what they could be doing next year?
I think this year they're doing, a fantastic job. They're the class of the field. They can't really improve upon this year because, like you said, they could reach 1,000 points. I don't think it's likely. They just need, a wet race in Brazil, and we know what happened there with Norris last year. But all jokes aside, they're the class of the field. They've assembled a strong team, which was vital before getting the strong car. They've got the team to back it up, and going into next year, they're going to have the same team. I fully expect them to be the team to beat again next year.
yeah, I suppose in terms of they will definitely have that edge going into the 2026 season. I don't think the 1,000 points are likely because I think they're gonna take each other out at some point. Or Oscar Piastri, he's on that very nice long run of finishing races. Luck runs out. I don't know if he's gonna get through the season. That would be amazing if he did, but these things happen. I think the only thing that maybe they need to consider is managing two very competitive drivers. I think even if they don't necessarily do particularly well next year, or say for example their car is not as competitive, they've still got two drivers who are like proven to be very adaptable and skilled. So I'd say the odds are in their favour.
I would also add that because they're so far ahead in the Constructors' Championship, that they, before most of their other competitors, they've probably been working on their 26 car more than, say, Ferrari and Red Bull, who are, they're playing catch-up. Mercedes, they're playing catch-up. So McLaren will have the edge on that. They've probably done much more development towards, or research towards the 26 car than the other teams, because from the outset, McLaren have had the fastest car, and it was pretty obvious that they would be, the top two in the Drivers' Championship, and they were going to win the Constructors. So I do think they will have an edge on their rivals purely because they've been able to work on that car.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing to consider as well on what you've just said there is that, the sort of other top teams are still developing this year. Whereas other teams sort of in the midfield maybe have slowed down or stopped with the upgrades so that they can focus on next year. So, I mean, for reading up, like Aston Martin, Alpine, they're further back, but they could be bringing a whole new thing next year that, we haven't seen. And they've really got that wiggle room. They've done a very good job of cementing that. And I think the fact that all their other sort of close competitors, Mercedes, Ferrari, Red Bull, they've all kind of only got one driver putting in consistent results. And they've got two that are consistently putting good results. So they've already got a nice bit of leeway from that. So that could very much be a problem next year as well for other teams.
Yeah, that's definitely a solid point. Of course, you'd have to consider that other teams, they are still bringing up upgrades. But I do believe that they are focusing those upgrades on to next year as well. They're not developing upgrades this year that you cannot learn from in regard to next year. And as for McLaren, I think that Piastri still has not adopted the rear suspension upgrade that they have ready for both drivers. I think Piastri's been in the media saying multiple times that he has not taken that upgrade because he doesn't like it. So that means that he has been driving with even an outdated McLaren against Norris. Maybe it fits his driving style better, of course. But that just shows how much leeway McLaren actually have in preparing for next year as well. Of course, you cannot rule out any other teams. We've, of course, been focusing on Mercedes engines, McLaren, who has a really strong car this year, predicted to take that into next year as well. But you really cannot rule out Ferrari. They've always been in the top four of the teams, no matter how bad of a season they're having. I think they're slowly creeping to the front this year. And next year, of course, clean slates and a completely different car. What do you think that they can do?
I mean, haven't we been saying this about Ferrari for a long time? Every year we kind of get halfway through and we go, no, next year they're going to do it. They are yet to do it. So I don't know if a whole big flip is going to save them in the regulations.
What I would say is when it comes to regulation changes, historically in the last sort of 20 years, Ferrari have not adapted well. You look at the 2009 regulation changes, they flopped. The 2014, they were nowhere. You could say 2022 they did start strong, but they faded away and were nowhere again, by about the mid-season. So if I was a Ferrari fan, I wouldn't be pinning too much hope on 26. You'd be looking more to sort of 27, when I would feel that they might challenge. They probably won't win anything, but they might challenge.
So no faith from Dan. Okay. If you look at the more recent past, though, Hungary, Leclerc pole, he definitely has what it takes to battle in front. I think he's taken the most podiums out of any non-McLaren driver in the past 4 races. You can't really count him out, can you?
I don't count him out. I don't really count Ferrari in. I suppose that's kind of where I'm at with it.
Yeah, it's been the narrative of the last few seasons about the drivers holding them back with the team.
Yeah, I don't think there's any problem with their drivers. They've got 2 of the best drivers on the grid. One of the best drivers in modern F1 history, maybe in F1 ever. And I don't think it's a great sign. Now, might be a controversial opinion. I don't think it's a great sign if your drivers are that shocked by your car performance. Now, some people might say, oh, that maybe is a good sign. But it's Ferrari. They're not, P10 in the Constructors' Championship. I don't think it should come as that much of a surprise. And we saw the way that they then completely fell away again on the Sunday. So I'm not going to do it to myself. I'm not going to pretend I have hope. I'd be happy to see them doing well, but it's Ferrari.
And they've still got the same Ferrari strategy team. So
they'll change anything but that team.
Yeah. Going to the other side of the grid, we've of course been focusing on top 4 teams. What do you think an Aston Martin with completely different way when it comes to engines? They are the only one adopting the Honda engines next year. They have Adrian Newey on board. A pretty strong driver lineup as well. Alonso, the forever rookie, of course. And Stroll, he has been putting in some half-decent performances as of late. But also when you look at teams like Williams, they're at the top of the midfield this year. Haas scoring kind of consistent points here and there. Alpine, of course, being the lowest on the grid at the moment. And then Sauber, who have performed pretty well after Spain. Where do you think those guys will end up in the order for next year?
I think it'll be pretty interesting to see how Alpine do. They're finally ditching that Renault engine, which it just hasn't worked, has it? And they've gone to Mercedes, who, like I said earlier, they're predicted to have the best engine. So it'd be interesting to see. It also would be interesting to see how much of the Alpine struggles have been the actual car compared to the actual engine. I'm tipping them to have a good season next year. Relatively sort of P7, P8. Also, if they can get their driver lineup sorted.
I think Alpine is definitely the one to watch. I mean, reading up on Gasly and his kind of place in the team, Flavio's back. Things don't seem to be quite a sort of revolving door as they were. So they seem more settled. I think the Merc engine is definitely gonna show us one way or the other what the problem is there. But I have to say Aston Martin, I think they've kind of got all the components for a perfect storm. So if they can put that together, why wouldn't it work? I mean, apart from one big limiting factor they have in their team. But maybe if everything works, they might find another driver. You don't know. I think, Alonso could work really well with this new system they've got. I mean, they've got their own wind tunnel. They've got this incredible facility. They've got Adrian Newey. They've got this whole new engine situation coming in. They're doing something new. They're doing something different. What's stopping it from working? You know, it could go really well for them.
I would also say I think an interesting one will be Audi. I think this season Sauber have, assembled, they've got a good core team now. And in my opinion, they've got, one of the best up-and-coming talents. They've got, Hulkenberg, who, his experiences, he's been in and around the sport since 2010. He's one of the old guard now. I just think Audi, if they can get their engine right, they could do something next year. That they could be challenging the likes of Aston Martin for the fifth place, and you never know. So Red Bull, they could fall away. They're bringing in their power engine for the first time. Who's going to be in the car? We don't know. Will Tsunoda be there? Verstappen will be there, but who will partner him? Will they have anyone decent in that second car? So I don't know. I think even Red Bull's position could be attacked.
Yeah. We have of course seen Sauber and Aston Martin battle on a few occasions this season as well, which has been an absolute joy to watch. And then, as you say, Red Bull could go either way. Same for VCarb, to be honest. If the package is not there, they could very well be seeing themselves on the other end of the grid. And there's a lot of open seats as well. We are heading towards the end of the summer break. We haven't seen any re-signings or multi-year contract deals yet. But we might. There's still 2 Cadillac seats as well. I think Alpine has 1 seat open. Both V-carbs are open. I think there's altogether like 7 or 8 seats open at the moment. So it will be nice to see.
Mercedes.
Sorry?
Mercedes.
Yeah, I mean, I fully expect them to retain their lineup. If you look at this with.
I mean, I fully expected them to retain their lineup, and every time I think we're getting closer to an announcement, Max Verstappen's on a yacht somewhere with Toto Wolff. with their partners, and they're on some sort of family holiday. I was minding my business today, scrolling Twitter, and what do you know? They're hanging out. So George Russell needs to go and get that done if it's not done, because Max is on the family holiday.
I think a well-deserved family holiday at this point,
Yeah.
Just had a kid, still racing, his team's slowly falling apart. He has confirmed he will be staying with Red Bull Racing for 2026. What happens for 2027, none of us know. I think the Mercedes contract length will speak volumes on whether they do intend to sign Verstappen in 2027. But that's still a whole year away. So, yeah. FIA has, however, put out a pretty interesting statement. We saw in 2014, Mercedes were very dominant. Will the FIA learn from that? That was one of our questions, of course. Answer is yes. They have some plans in place to stop teams from being the dominant factor, and from other teams to give them more opportunities to catch up. FIA sporting director, or do I say that correctly? Sports director, has given an interview to Auto Motor and Sport, where he has outlined a program that they call Additional Development Opportunities for Lagging Performance. They have put that into the rules from the start, but they, of course, have to fine-tune this and work it out further. But the plan as it is now, they will evaluate after every 6 races, so every quarter of the season, to kind of reflect on the order of the teams and give extra, kind of development funds or time or whatever to teams that need them. Thoughts?
Where do you draw the line?
I think that's it, isn't it?
That's it.
Look, in my mind, from a fan point of view, in principle, it's good because it should make the racing closer. In principle, in reality, if you're Mercedes and you do have the best engine, or you're Ferrari and you've got the best engine, and all of a sudden someone's getting a few extra million to pump in towards their engine and make it faster, you're just like, what was the point?
Yeah, I mean, on that same point, so one thing that people love about F1 is that, the development race kind of thing that you've got going on, the upgrades, and if you do the best at that, it's kind of fair that you win at the end of the season. So I get the racing element, and I don't think that people want to see, these huge stints of time of dominance. I personally don't want to see that. I don't enjoy that as a racing fan, but I think there are a lot of different ways to look at that, because where do you draw the line, and what constitutes handing out a few million? Like, it seems like a very F1 FIA thing to do, where they have this kind of good on paper idea to fix everything, but again, like, practically, I don't know how that's going to work. And
like you said, you can throw money at the problem. It is one of the FIA has specified 3 different ways that they will be able to help teams. One of them is including more money for development. As you say, could not be the best solution. Something we already have in place, which is testing hours. The lower you are in the championship, the more testing hours you get for aerodynamic development, wind tunnel time. They will also be handing out some of that, and they can have some more time to homologate the specification, which I think is related to engines performance. I mean, I do like seeing a more close field, especially if we can actually race, which we can't this year, but hopefully we can hope. I would like to see a 4-car battle for wins, which we have seen in some races this year or last year. I would like to see it throughout a season, to see multiple teams have a chance. But on the other hand, if you don't do your homework well, should you be kind of boosted towards the front by the FIA? It's like you said, where do you draw the line? I think it's a nice incentive, but it needs to be implemented properly.
I suppose, like, the whole element of the cost cap, like, how does that factor in? How do you have to, like, make a PowerPoint, take it to the FIA? Like, what are the parameters? Like, it
full on George Russell style.
Exactly. Like, the cost cap's there for a reason. I don't like it, but it's there. Like, they can't. No.
Yeah. Although I think the cost cap was more to prevent teams from throwing money at the problem. Like, I think cost cap is 196 million yearly.
I think it's 135.
I could be
dollars.
wrong. But that would kind of prevent the big Ferrari, Mercedes, Red Bull from just spending another 300 million on their engines and just flying away. This is, of course, more aimed at the lower teams. But yeah, I think my opinion, anyways, is cost cap. We should get rid of it. It's kind of taking away some of the essence of F1 that we all love. But I do like to see some implementations of help for teams who are struggling, and just kind of give them the edge to kind of be able to fight back in a way. Of course, it can't be too strong, but I do like to see the incentive to kind of help those teams a little bit.
I mean, going on to the cost cap, I think in principle it's a good idea, and there's ways that it could be done correctly. I think it just needs a complete restructure. I think you should take salaries out of the cost cap, and you know, things like that. It should be purely just what you can spend on developing your car.
Catering.
That is it.
That was a fun.
No Red Bull fans here, so it's all good. Yeah, that it should be just about developing the car, creating the car, and manufacturing parts. That is it in the cost cap. That should be it.
I think, it was so kind of maybe misguided when they introduced it. It was like a quick fix to a problem, but it's taken nearly 4 years to see any kind of impact that the cost cap's had. It's given us a lot of scandals and entertainment, but I think you're completely right in that the principle is great and on paper it works, but I think there are too many things being done in the sport at the moment akin to that. Like, oh, this sounds like a great idea, let's do it, and it's just having the complete opposite effect because it kind of feels like there's no real thought put into the longevity of these things. So the cost cap, it's just it's already kind of unraveling when you look at, okay, so next year, how is that going to work if you're just handing out money? It's already something to unravel, and they've only had it for 4 seasons.
Yeah. Talking about many different parts that are changing for next year, we have, of course, Cadillac coming into F1 as the 11th team. 2 more cars on the grid. What do you guys expect from them, both driver-wise, Ferrari engines, of course, and a completely new philosophy, to be fair?
I'm quite excited.
I think performance-wise, I'm excited. It's an extra 2 cars on the grid. In theory, it should be more racing. I expect them to be sort of, when Haas came in 2016, they were challenging for the lower points. They were learning, they were making mistakes. They rebuilt, and then the following year, they grew, and then they grew, and then they grew. I expect it to be fairly similar to the Haas story. Again, they had the Ferrari engine, the Ferrari gearbox, etc. Regarding drivers, I think Sergio Perez is pretty nailed on to get the seat, and I'm for that. He's a brilliant midfield driver. Probably one of the best. The current era. Maybe Red Bull was too big for him, but I think he showed when he was at Racing Point, Force India, Sauber, that he's a very good midfield driver, and he developed the cars to make them better. Something maybe not seen with Bottas. Alongside him, I'm unsure. You got Schumacher and Linked and Zhou Guanyu. And personally, I think they've got to look a bit better than that. If I was going to pick anyone, I would maybe even go for Dragovic, personally. That's who I would like to see in the car next to Perez.
I think, Perez, I think, is a done deal. I've heard through the grapevine that maybe Schumacher is not as solid as maybe it was looking. But, we won't know until we see the Instagram post. So, I don't know. But I'd quite like to see Bottas in the seat. I think, the way he kind of went out was kind of slow death. We knew it was going to happen. We were just waiting for the Russell contract announcement. And he's still stayed like such a, like, so close to the sport, which a lot of drivers, when they get dropped like that, they kind of disappear. Like, we've seen how that's happened now to Ricciardo. Every time you see him online, it's like accompanied by shock sighting, you know, because he's just completely gone off the grid. Bottas has stayed really close, really central to the sport. So I think, you know, that would be good. And you'd also have that experienced lineup, you know, in terms of development, in terms of just getting things where they want to be, you know?
Yeah, to be fair, I think the reason Ricciardo was kind of dropped off the grid was because he has been a third driver, I think on 3 separate occasions, and every time they're putting him back into the car, only to drop him again then. I think he was also kind of done with the sport. But do you guys think we might see like a Crawford, an American driver, make their debut in F1 next year?
No.
I would be all for it. I'd be quite happy to see it. But again, I think they're going to go for experience.
I wouldn't go for Crawford. I don't think personally he's ready yet. I think he's a good driver. I think maybe another year or two in F2 would serve him well, or competing in another series to get into F1. I think he's got the potential for it, but right now I don't think he's ready. I just don't see the benefit in having both Perez and Bottas in the car personally. I think you pick one or the other. And then you go for a younger driver because, you know, Bottas and Perez aren't going to be around for too much longer. You need someone that you can build the team around. And if you build the team around a younger driver who can be there for 4 or 5 years, I think personally that's the way to go with an experienced driver.
I think in terms of going for the experience, you know, you've got 2 drivers that are on the older side in Bottas and Perez. So, you know, that could be their way of sort of priming the team to get them into a place where they can have a Crawford or a Dragovic or something along those lines. I think that's what it's going to be. I don't really have any preference going. I think Cadillac is such a whole new
unknown.
Yeah, exactly. So for me, there's no like real strong preference. I just think that's kind of the likeliest option as of right now. And it looks like we're going to be finding out a lot more about their lineup kind of around Monza. So it's coming. But, you know, it wouldn't be the first time that they've kind of put an experienced driver in to prime for those new sort of talents.
Yeah. I mean, talking about drivers that they could put in, we do have a couple of unconfirmed seats at the moment. Do we think they might try to poach from the other teams? I think having a Tsunoda who might not be in the car next year at Red Bull, still a pretty solid driver in my opinion. And then you have also Lawson and Hadjar. None of them have been confirmed at this moment. And doesn't look like they have much of a future if Red Bull doesn't perform next year. What do you think?
I don't think they would go for Tsunoda. If he was going to move, I think his position would be more towards Aston Martin. But I can see Tsunoda falling off the grid personally. I think they'll sign Hadjar and Lawson for next year. I think both of them have really good potential. Lawson was put into the Red Bull too soon. And we're seeing now, you know, what he can actually do once he's got his confidence back. So I think they'll stick with that lineup unless they decide to promote Hadjar. And then they could bring in someone like Lindblad. Which I wouldn't be opposed to. I think he is a really good driver. Again, probably a bit too soon. But I don't see them poaching.
I think maybe for Tsunoda it would be a move for sure to go to Cadillac because, like you say, I don't think there are many options for him. I think him getting out of Red Bull, maybe he could have a similar sort of Pierre Gasly arc. You know, he's kind of gotten away from the Red Bull family and he's finally cemented himself in a team where he is the leader, you know? And I think it probably all gets quite lost in translation when you've got, right, you're going to Red Bull, and now you're going back to V-Carb, and now you're, like, no one knows which way is up at that point. So I think maybe if Tsunoda could go to a team like Cadillac and establish it, like himself there, that would be maybe an ideal move for him. Obviously, you know, performance is a whole other can of worms. But, you know, I think Hadjar will probably stay. But it would be great as well to see someone like Limblad in. Like, he's having a really good season. So, but you don't want him to get Red Bulled, you know? So it's like, it's a tricky one.
What I would say about Tsunoda's performance is I think it's been a bit harsh to judge him so far on the fact he hasn't had Verstappen's spec car. Now he does. He's run out of excuses. If he doesn't perform, he's got to go.
But the other problem there is you could put Piastri in Verstappen's car and nothing good could happen. You know, it's like that car is kind of doing its own... It's got its own thing about it. Whatever Max says.
Yeah. I mean, I do think that's kind of both the charm and what's holding F1 back. You have a team and two drivers, and you can't just put other drivers in other cars due to contracts and all. We do have a lot of unknowns going into the 2026 season. Maybe we'll kind of get a better picture before Zandvoort. Otherwise, after Monza, I think most of the teams will be announcing their plans. I do think that we have run through our material for today. Do you guys have any more thoughts, predictions, whatever?
Honestly, no. I'm just waiting for it to come back. I've got a countdown going now. Like it's gone too far now. Bring the cars back.
Yeah.
Plus, I think, you know, second half of the season now, it's going to be intense from every possible angle. McLaren are something's going to go horribly wrong there. I can sense it. Silly season. We've got so much potential for moving around and going, and there's so much to look forward to. So just want to be done with the break now. Let's get back to it. But
it's the business end, isn't it? It's where everything matters now.
Yeah.
You know, there's no room for error, especially with the McLaren pair. You know, the rest of them, it's fine for pride, but for the McLarens, it's the business end now. And regarding the actual title fight, I do expect it to be quite a nice, polite, friendly battle. But you never know, you know. One of them could snap. The pressure and all that.
I think Oscar Piastri is going to go full villain mode, like Disney villain, terrifying.
He's going to go full Max Verstappen.
Yes, he is. And I don't know if that's a compliment, from me at least. I can't do this right now.
Ending on a hot take. I like it. Okay. Well, everyone who has been with us for the entire episode, thanks for listening. If you like this episode, leave a comment. Any tips or appreciations, they're always very, very well appreciated in our circles. And I think we'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.
Bye.